AI is spreading and growing faster than anything else we've ever seen in history. And the big players like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft have a big problem to solve. They are not out of the woods when it comes to the AI race that they're in, and the future for them could be really positive or really negative and grim depending on how things go. Now, all of these statements I got from a new report that making its shakes around the artificial intelligence world by Bond, which is a corporate or a venture capitalist corporate. And it is significant not because of the name of that VC firm, but because of who's behind it. So the person behind this is Mary Meeker, and she is, I think she used to be called the Queen of the Internet. Maybe she's already still called the Queen of Internet. And she used to put out these amazing internet reports that were actually shaping lots of investment decisions by the top VC and investment firms worldwide. And since 5 years, Mary Meeker didn't put a single thing out. And today, in early June 2025, she puts Trends for Artificial Intelligence report by her business or by her VC company, which is Bond. And we are talking about 340 slides that Mary and her colleagues put out there. And what I will do today is I will take you to the areas that I feel are really necessary for you to look at. Certain things will sound obvious or sound something that you've heard before. Many areas, at least for me, or a couple of areas actually, were so unique as a perspective, so interesting, that also I think people should know about. So with this and without any further ado, let's get started.
Subscribe to Daddy's channel, The Mic.
So this slide is one slide that I think everyone should read word by word. This is the context. This is what is introducing the whole report for people. But why it's important is because here they talk about why they're doing this whole thing, just hinting to what they see around the area of artificial intelligence, how it's moving fast, how it's dynamic as an area. Even they talk about having to actually keep updating this whole deck multiple times, because while they're creating it, things are changing as they were putting this together. They mention areas around the US and China when it comes to the artificial intelligence race. And even they mention that November 22 marked basically OpenAI's ChatGPT when it was dropped. That was a historic moment when actually AI became possible as a tool, as a consumer level and widespread type of technology available for users, and how that moment was pivotal to the industry of artificial intelligence. And again, they hint to something that the report will focus on, which is the race and what it's driving in terms of financial, burning lots of cash and lots of capital as these companies compete for a market share when it comes to artificial intelligence, out of greed to get more market share or more users, or actually just being afraid to becoming so fast in a pace that never happened before, irrelevant, that they couldn't survive this wave of artificial intelligence. That will make a lot of sense later when we look at the details. Okay, so this is the first slide I want to show you. And it's an interesting title, Charts Paint Thousands of Words. And this is just showing us how fast artificial intelligence is growing, the acceleration it's gaining. So even within the past 2 to 3 years, when ChatGPT in October or November 2022 came out, until today, it is still accelerating in a way that actually is overwhelming. So you can see that in the ticks happening here at the end of these charts. All of these charts are representing something different, either users, capital expenditure around AI, or other things. But fundamentally, it's just telling us we might not be realizing fully how fast AI is growing and will be growing in the future. Here we are looking at human history. And I'm sure this is something that we take in school and universities. This is the technology compounding over 1,000+ years. And it equals better, faster, and cheaper technology for humans. And you can see the whole history for the year 1000 until our day today. And you can see the first innovation from the printing press, steam engine, and then how things accelerate in technology that is leading to GDP globally for humanity. And if you go through the slides, this is not just a history lesson. This is suggesting that this will be even steeper going forward. So the value that artificial intelligence probably will generate is way more GDP globally and way more accelerated innovation or technology for humanity. So it's accelerating everything. So in so many areas going forward, things will happen at a much faster pace than anything humans have seen before. This is complements what we just looked at. Again, technology compounding over 50 plus years. This is looking at units of technology devices. And here you can see it's important to know that this axis is logarithmic, okay? So it actually is much more significant if you think about it as such an axis when you look at the chart. And it just tells you how much more humans are producing and the potential to produce more. And if this reflects anything, it will reflect, in my opinion, how more and more technology will become an essential part of human life and how it will be spread across the human population globally, or influencing the human population globally. And here you can start by looking at from a mainframe. So this is like the old computer filling a room that we see the pictures of in history books, and then the mini computer, and then the PC, and then the desktop internet. And here we started looking into the billions of units and users, and then the mobile internet when everyone got mobile smart devices and we started using them. Here we're talking about 4 billion plus units. This is more than half the human populations. And now in the AI era, we're looking at tens of billions of units. We are going into that direction now. And this is closer to 2030. So by 2030, probably the vast majority, if not all humans, will interact in one way or another with artificial intelligence. And here you can see the enabling infrastructure. So we have CPUs, then big data and cloud. So these are all the data centers which will keep growing. And now it's more focused or maybe enabled more or further by GPUs. So even the hardware part of technology, don't let anyone tell you anything different. You can read the report, it will make more sense, will grow as fast as AI itself as software is growing. So it's not only software part of things is growing. Hardware is doing the same and is at a similar pace, I would say, just from looking at this report. Just to complement what we just looked at, 360% annual growth over 15 years of compute to train AI models led to, so you can see this chart, which spans from 1950 up till our day to day. AI is not a new thing. People or humans were dabbling with it for a long time, but it just shows you from 2010 up till today, year over year, we are growing by 360% in the amount of compute we're putting to train the AI models. So it's becoming more demanding year over year to train these models, and it's more expensive as well to do that, as we'll see in a second. And here, like this tells us a lot, this chart, the growth in the number of large scale AI models. And you can see starting from 2020 up till our day to day, it's like going crazy. The number of AI models out there is increasing really fast, and they're talking about 167% per year. All the memes around people with red eyes trying to keep up with AI, this is what's driving it. We are getting more technology or more models every day in a rate that I don't know for how long it will run, but this is how it's going today. And if you see this small blue thing here in 2017, this is when both models from DeepMind, which is AlphaGo 0, and Master came out. And this is the same year where we got Attention's All You Need paper, which changed everything. So this is a really nice chart to look at. Now, looking at ChatGPT as a single model and maybe the biggest name today in the world of AI, you can see from October 2022, the growth in their users. It is crazy. So every time, if you remember, you hear the story of how fast Facebook or Instagram or even Uber got to 1 million users. Well, that's all part of history. That's all even pathetic results compared to whatever ChatGPT achieved here. And you can see from 0 to 800 million users took it like less than 3 years. Even for paid subscribers, it hit 20 million in less than 3 years. And even for revenue, it's growing like crazy. So you can see this chart just tells you everything you need to know, how big and how fast something like ChatGPT is growing. And this is probably the same chart if you look at any other AI well-known model or company out there. I will not spend time on this, but I think this is an important slide to read if you want to understand the history of AI, including when we went through what they call the AI winter, and then the big milestones that got us to, well, the moment where OpenAI released ChatGPT and everyone started talking about AI. So this is an interesting slide that I think you should go through if you're interested to learn more. So here again, this just shows you the speed of growth in artificial intelligence and how people are racing to go after patents and breakthroughs. And it just shows you over time the number of patents or grants or granted patents that were out there. At least this is looking at the United States. And you can see here between probably 1995 and 2004, which is around 9 years, there was 6,300 more patents granted than average in that span of time. And then we had some kind of a slowdown between 2004 and then 2023, where here we got 1,000 more patents granted from before the trend, at least above the trend when it comes to computing. All of these are computing related patents. After that, only between 23 and 24, we got 6,000 more patents granted for computing in that 1 year, which is what happened in that 1 year is nearly equal to what took us 9 years in the past and more than what we were trending towards in the past 18 years. So that's super interesting. So everything changed here in this moment. So it just tells you where this thing is going, how much money is being spent and how much people are going to secure patents around computing now that we are in this AI era. Again, tells us hardware is growing really fast. Computing will be a big part of the future. There are so many interesting things in this report. I would love to cover it one by one. It will take a long time. But just this slide, if you look at it, it is showing us people's ability to tell if text is basically AI or human, and based on different models. You can see here that GPT-4o, well, most humans actually were able to tell that this is AI, but you can see GPT 4.5, which was discontinued because it was super expensive, actually AI won. Humans were not able to tell for the most part that this was AI. So that's super interesting. It just tells you how good it is getting. Again, one more slide just to show you, to contrast the internet to AI, show you how crazy this thing we're looking at. So it took the internet in terms of adoption to go from less than 25% to 90% here. This is the internet. The blue line is the internet. It took humanity 23 years to go from this level of active user adoption to the 90%. All of that took ChatGPT 3 years to do. And the starting point is 50% because adoption, I think from the gate was crazy, and they hit 90% active online users in 3 years. Again, one more. I mean, I'm gonna repeat these things because I think these are interesting charts that you should see. And maybe I'm repeating the same point of how fast this thing is going. And I think it took me multiple slides to really wrap my head around how really fast this thing is going. I mean, I can tell it to you. Probably it will take you as much slide as I had to look through to really wrap my head around how fast this is going. And they show it in so many different ways because I think they understand that it takes many ways to show people something to get the idea to sink in. So this is some well-known platforms or companies or businesses in the era of the internet that grew up to the mark of 100 million users. And let's start with Netflix, which was something that was taught in startups, in universities, in books, of around how much time or little time, at least then, it took them to hit that 1 million users. Now we're looking at a 100 million user mark here, and it took Netflix 10.3 years to get to 100 million users. And maybe we can go to Facebook here. It took them 4.5. There are other platforms here that you know and you love, but again, just look at that curve, like look at that reduction in time taken. You have Instagram. I think Instagram, they don't have a number here, but if I look here, 2 point something years. And then you have Disney, Fortnite, and TikTok. So TikTok is probably the closest thing or more recent thing close to ChatGPT, and it's maybe close to 1 year. And here you have ChatGPT, which is 0.2 years to get to 100 million users. So 0.2 years is around 3 months. So think about that. It took them only 3 months to amount 100 million users. It would take me more than that to paint a room in my house. One more interesting chart. So this is the days to reach 1 million customers. And here you can see the Ford Model T in 1908, and that was priced at $29,330. And then you got the TiVo. Again, it's nothing that we got in our part of the world, but this is something that was well known in the US. Again, that was in 1999, and the price was $945. Again, these maybe are not comparable technologies, but just shows you a price point for that technology. And then you got the iPhone in 2007, and that was $756. And then we have ChatGPT in 2022, and it's $0. Well, obviously for the free tier. And this is going down from 2,500 days to reach 1 million customers for Ford to 5 days to reach that number for ChatGPT. 5 days to reach 1 million users. So it just shows you how technology is accelerating across 100 years nearly of human history. So a quick thing here. This is a slide that shows you the big six, so the big 6 tech companies in the United States and their capital expenditure as businesses across the years. And this is starting from 2014, where we're talking about less than $50 billion, and up to 2024, where that spend is topping the $200 billion. And they are layering this over another interesting line, the line you see here in red, which is the amount of data being generated across time. So you can see these companies are pushing much more data, and they are investing much more year over year when it comes to capital projects for their businesses. And the interesting thing out of this whole slide is you can draw a line here somehow that makes sense. But if you continue that line, it will not hit this last bar. It just shows you the amount of acceleration of capital spend that happened between 23 and 24. So this is out of the whole trend. And this is just disrupting this whole chart. It will be interesting to look at this chart in the future. If there's one thing to see here, is that these companies are in a race. Clearly, all of them are spending folds more when it comes to capital projects, going for competing in terms of market share, I would say, or maybe away from being irrelevant if they don't spend as much going forward in the future. And it just tells you how these companies are viewing artificial intelligence as a breakthrough technology, as a moment in history that either they grab or they actually lose if they don't grab it. So in the middle of the slide deck, there's an interesting section that really, for me, it was the one most interesting thing to think about as I read the report, which is something seems obvious, but if you don't spend time thinking about it, from a business perspective, it might be something that you miss. And it is showing the gap by the increasing model training costs for these AI companies and the fast reducing inference cost, at least how they're offering it to the users, and the gap that this will present or put against these companies as a challenge going forward in the future. So there's a big question mark on how this AI technology in the business world for these companies who are, yes, getting the investments they're looking for. Probably now everyone's throwing their money on AI, but How do they make all of this profitable? With this kind of divergence that we see. Compute cost when it comes to training models, so their expenses is increasing, but how they're selling the cost per token that they're selling these models for to their consumers, that are increasing, yes, but that's going down as well significantly and really fast. And we'll see a couple of slides to show us that. So here we're looking at energy required per large language model token. So joules, NVIDIA for NVIDIA GPUs. So here we're looking at different NVIDIA GPUs from 2014 until the Blackwell in 2024. So across 10 years. And here you can see the reduction in energy required. So that's good. But now we're going to look also what's happening with the inference, which I believe is driven down due to competition and not purely due to this reduction in energy cost. So here, as I said, we're looking at the AI inference price for customers per 1 million token. So this is how they measure usually large language model cost per 1 million token input or output. So here we're looking at inference price per 1 million tokens in general and how that cost is reducing. So this is the vertical that shows the price. Okay, so it started here per 1 million tokens of around $10, and this is ChatGPT 3.5. So this is what we got around November 2022. So this is where it all started, and you can see how fast it's dropping. Today, we are looking at, again, there are even cheaper models that came out after this chart was done. And now I realize, if you remember the context, they were talking about, it's a game of whack-a-mole. They had to really keep changing some charts. Probably this is one of them, that either they quit or they said, we shouldn't keep updating this. It will keep on going, and this trend will keep on going down. So companies are competing by cheaper inference cost. But you can see where we're at in January 2025. At that time, after that, we got the Gemini 2.5 models, which are super cheap, super powerful. So it's not only it's getting cheaper, AI is getting much better and cheaper. So it's costing them more to make it that much better, and they'll have to sell it much cheaper to keep competing, at least in the API world. Again, one more interesting chart that I will not spend a lot of time on, but this just shows you the relative key for key technologies and how much years it took it to really become more affordable. And you can see electricity is the first one, and you can see this is year 0, and from the starting point until what we have today, more or less, it took it more than 70 years. Just looking at this number of years here, around more than 70 years. And then you can look at the second one, which is compute memory, which was way faster in dropping or becoming more efficient or more accessible in terms of cost to users. And it took it around 10 years. And then we have ChatGPT, and you can see it's like, it's just a free fall down. You can see that here, it's just a free fall down. Probably it took it the 2 years that we know ChatGPT for. So it just tells a lot about, it just gives you a perspective or different angle of how you look at AI when it comes to growth, efficiency, competition, spend, what's happening with these companies or corporates behind it. All of that, this is a different way and a really interesting way of looking at it. This is a super simple, but again, super interesting chart to look at. So this shows two simple things: the OpenAI revenue and the compute expenses. Okay, so this line is the revenue line. This is the blue line. And you can see from 2022, it grew from 0 basically until around $3 billion of revenue. And just in 1 year, so the data for 2022, when it comes to expenses, it's something that they didn't have. But just in 1 year, the expenses grew from probably minus like here, 1 billion, 1.5 billion, I would estimate just looking at the chart, to 5 billion. So expenses are growing at a much faster pace than the revenue. That's very clear. The big question here, there's a big gap for OpenAI, and you can assume the same for Google and for Anthropic and all other AI company. They are losing money, and they are losing money fast. Is there a way for them to recover that loss or to be profitable in the future? That is something that they're just presenting, not answering. I don't think anyone can know the answer, but this is something for investors they have to answer if they want to really go big when it comes to AI. Again, they might do that just because of having to, because everyone is investing in AI. And they will have to really think deeper if this can be profitable, which companies will achieve that, and through which model they can do that. What will bring them the money? Is it these interfaces like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, or is it agents or something else? But this can go wrong really fast just looking at this chart. So something has to at some point make sense in the future, because investors might spend a lot just to be in that race. This is a technology that could change the way we interact with the whole world. Maybe countries, when it comes to defense, they see it as a survival kind of investment. That's fine. At some point, it has to make financial sense for these companies at least to survive. Or maybe new companies will come up with a future model, companies that we don't see today, and be able to close this gap and be profitable. It could be none of the companies we know today. Not Nvidia, not OpenAI, not Anthropic, not even Google. This is like a big question. This is where the debate is going. It could be someone else. It could be these same companies. But there's a big gap and there's a big leak of funds from these businesses. They're losing money fast. Again, one more, I would call it investor interesting slide or technology enthusiast interesting slide. So this shows the different layers of AI companies that we have out there. So you have on the top companies that are focusing on developing the models, the technology itself, the chatbots. So we have things like Anthropic, Perplexity, and DeepSeek. And the second layer, you have companies that are investing in some kind of infrastructure, AI infrastructure, that are Meta, so which is Facebook basically, xAI, which is Elon Musk's business, OpenAI itself, and Nvidia. So these companies are building or investing in their own data centers or infrastructures in one way or another. And then you have the giants, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon. These are building cloud services, data centers, models themselves. They have kind of a vertical supply for the whole industry of AI and its ecosystem. They do it all from A to Z in these three companies. So it's really interesting to map and differentiate AI businesses in this way. So I thought this is something interesting for everyone to see. Now in the middle, so I skipped a good amount of slides that are really interesting for you to dig deep into, that talk about different revenue streams for AI for different businesses, how other businesses are using artificial intelligence technology and how they are using it to grow or redesign their product or compete in the market. And there's an interesting slide in the middle that shows you different market segments in the USA and the market share and how that whole thing is influenced by AI. So that's interesting to see. And then it goes more to the specialized software in AI, things like Cursor for coding. And then it goes into more focus a little bit on multimodal aspect of AI models like audio, video, and so forth. So all of that is interesting, but I think many of it is things that, especially for people who keep some track of AI news, know a little bit about, but I recommend that you go there and you go through these slides. They are very interesting and very important. Nevertheless, here I wanted to go something different in this slide deck, and this is slide 263. So this is where we're at. And this just shows you the difference or contrast between closed source and open source model. So this is a big battle happening in the industry of AI between open source and closed source, and always something interesting to keep track of. And here they're bringing some perspective on it. And what this chart shows is the estimated share of global monthly active users across 6 leading large language models. Okay. And this is as of April 2025. Again, this is the source of the data. And this is here, if you see the vertical part of it, this is the share of global consumer users as percentage, and then the different companies. And you can see the big domination here, like who controls the whole thing is obviously ChatGPT by OpenAI with close to 60% market share. And then Google Gemini, maybe around 15%, I think, from just looking at the image. And then you have two, somehow, again, see there's an asterisk next to Grok, open source or open source claimed models that are in the middle with close to 10% each of the market share. So you have DeepSeek and xAI Grok, and then you have Perplexity and Anthropic, which are closed source. This just tells you that there is a chunk out there for open source models, and it's growing, and the gap between closed source and open source models is shrinking, and it might be shrinking fast the more we progress in these open source models as they develop their technologies. This is an interesting one. So it's a big battle. I mean, this is well known in the world of AI that open source and closed source, it's a big bet these companies make. So either you go closed source, proprietary type of model like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, or you go open source like Meta or DeepSeek. The debate is always there. What's better? What's performing better in terms of a technology, not even financial or as businesses. So that's a different story. So you can see this looking at the performance on math level 5 test. Again, there's so many benchmarks when it comes to comparing AI models, but this is focused on open versus closed large language models by year released. And what you can see is starting with July 2023, there's a significant gap in terms of performance on this one benchmark that they're looking at. And that difference is around 18%, I think. And it kept somehow consistent, but started reducing months over months, again, with newer models being released by all of these big players, until the point here, which is October of 2024, which is around 8 months back, where it became really close as a competition between this model. And then, well, actually, O1 preview by OpenAI came out, putting that difference in performance to a big gap again. And we all hit the moment that most of us who are tracking AI remember, which is getting the DeepSeek R1, where for one time we had an open source model that goes neck to neck with the best world-class closed source model AI out there, which was at that time is the O3 mini or the full-fledged O1 model by OpenAI. And here they are even putting O3. There's no equivalent open source model, but we all know that DeepSeek R2 is coming anytime now, and I do not think it will be way behind. I don't think the gap will be anything too significant. It might be neck to neck with O3. So what you need to understand out of this is that the gap of open source and closed source model is closing fast. This, at this point of development of the artificial intelligence industry, might be a tipping point for the future. Like, will this be something temporary, or this is the way to go, that neck to neck technologies are there between open source and closed source? Or will what so many people bet for in the past will happen, which is that open source models will always eventually win the race compared to closed source models, because it's an environment that so many people contribute towards. That is something to watch out for and see for ourselves. But I thought this is something interesting for everyone to see. The gap is closing. That's what we can learn from this chart. So from the past slide, there's so many slides around revenue and profitability of these companies or businesses or systems based on AI. So all of that is important. Again, remember, this is a VC type of slide deck. So definitely it talks about money a lot, but there are other interesting things to look at here. So this just shows the political side of things. This shows the AI race happening globally. And you can see clearly that number one, and I think this is obvious enough, is the United States, but a close second is China. So this is something definitely to watch. So conflicts and races in the past were arms, maybe economies, conflicting economies or economic wars. Now we have AI race, basically. This is the new kind of arms race. It's about AI. It's all about AI. And you can see the top two global powers are clearly racing for putting more technology out there and looking to beat the others in that technology. So on the face of it, this is good for the consumer. This is good for the technology. Hopefully it stays as a technology-driven race and nothing else. But here you have it. Everyone else is down here. So maybe we have surprises in the future with people basically getting to be active participant of that race. But as we speak, this is only China and the United States. Now, switching gears, we're going to talk about the physical world, so about the robots. So I will start with something interesting, something just showing you how advanced. So we know, okay, when it comes to AI, there's a race, US is winning. But when it comes to robots driven by AI, this is probably a bet that China will win, a race that China will win. And you can see this chart shows you the number of industrial robots installed in thousands, okay? And you can see this is the number that China has, and this is the rest of the world. So China by itself has more industrial robots installed than all the other countries in the world combined. And that makes sense being the factory of the world. Again, there's so many comparisons between China and the United States in the slide deck. And this is an interesting area, I think. If you want to spend time on the slide deck, you should do so. And it just here, this one is very simple. It shows you that the Chinese as a population are much more optimistic about AI than the Americans. So this is products and services using AI have more benefit than drawbacks. Simple question that apparently was asked to people, again, between 22 and 24. And you can see that more than 50%, actually this is close to 75 going to 80, where people think, yes, it's gonna have more benefit than drawbacks in China. So this is more than 75% to 80% of the population. In the US, in both cases, in both surveys done, I assume, it is still under the 50% line that you see over here. So for the majority, the Chinese are more optimistic than the Americans when it comes to AI, which could be an influencing factor in how that race will carry on to go. So I think anyone in the US looking at this report now in the government probably will need to, or will start looking into spending more effort in AI education to make people really understand the technology, not fear it unnecessarily, maybe be more positive about it, because that will create traction or further traction in innovation in the United States. So this is the first slide in a section that talks about the ramp up in internet usage, more or less, and the increase in that usage or spread of the internet enabled by AI and AI agents. And it is very interesting. And I think there's one statement that everyone should read. In our day-to-day in June 2025, there's a big part of a human population that is not on the internet or doesn't have access to that technology. And here, this is an interesting statement. Thanks to the rise in low-cost satellite-driven internet connectivity, access, the potential for the 2.6 billion or 32% of the world population, so that's 1/3 of the world population that is not online to come online is increasing. To the odd of that 1/3 that is missing out, it will come on the internet. That is having positive results for humanity, for economies, for growing economies, growing countries, third world countries that probably are part of that 1/3 of their populations being offline. And the interesting thing is that these new users will start from scratch when it comes to AI functionality. So I think you can read on, but the concept is the way internet was introduced to you and me probably will be different from these people. These people will look into the internet through the window of AI agents probably, or AI in general, rather than the browser window that is typical to me and to you that we are using today. That could be different. As AI helps in this 1/3 adopting the access to online or the internet, it won't happen through your typical browser. At least this is the claim they're making. And this is one thing about talking about agents and the potential for AI agents and what it means actually when you say AI agent for the future. So when we go to the browser today, we're going to get a piece of information, do a certain task online, apply for something, whatever, do our research on a certain area using a certain tool. That will change. So imagine you are interfacing, the user interface is not a browser, but it's an agent that does everything that we do today in browsing for you and just gives you what you are looking for. Is it a piece of information, doing something online, applying for university, applying for your taxes, whatever it is? Imagine that interface is an AI agent. And imagine that AI agent can speak any language on earth. So today, these communities who might be not having access or having lots of barriers for access, if it's not technology, maybe it's language barriers, cultural barriers. These things might go away. So this is a super interesting perspective to look into when you think about AI, and it's definitely a section to go through if you want to go through the slide deck by Bond. Now this section is where the report goes to how companies are looking at AI and the workforce and the future of that. I will not go through it. These are cases that the report is showing, and these are things that made some noise in the past online, at least for people who are following AI news. You have to read it for your own. It's interesting. It is not the one narrative out there. It is some of the narratives that you should think about that could come to the company that you're running. So you might be having the same narrative at least, or an ideology or belief system when it comes to artificial intelligence and how it will affect your business. But also it might be something for you as an employee to be aware of. Just it will help you in really absorbing the environment that is changing around you when it comes to AI and how it's influencing your employer probably, and what to do with this information. Now, in the same sense, this is again, we were looking at the Shopify one. Now this is Duolingo, which is a well-known business out there. But this is part of a messaging that was sent out by their CEO. Again, it made its rounds around the internet. But I want to read just a couple of bullet points just to show you a CEO for a company like Duolingo and what he's thinking about AI and his business and the workforce. So some of the things that he was saying, AI use will be part of what we look for in hiring. If companies in the future are hiring people, they want to know how much you know, how much you can do with artificial intelligence. So AI education, joining community like mine and school, will be, I think, one of the important and essential things. This is why I created my school community, to get more people to have that chance, and it's free for now. So AI use will be part of what we evaluate in performance reviews. So it will be a KPI for you is how much efficient you are in your job by judging you by how much AI you are using in your job. So that's an interesting thing. Again, it's one narrative. Not everyone will do the same. Just it's good to hear what goes in the head of a CEO of such a company. Headcount will only be given if a team cannot automate more of their work. Imagine. So today, if you have kind of a crunch in your organization, in your function, maybe work is increasing, you go to your manager or your executive, you ask for more heads, more people. In the past, if they want to challenge you, they will ask you, are you efficient enough? So is your process efficient enough? Can you make your process in a way that is maybe having less friction, that allows for things to happen faster? The next phase of this, they will ask you, is your work automated enough or AI enabled enough? And unless you can prove that the answer is yes, you will not get a headcount. So you have to prove it's automated enough. Then, okay, that makes sense to give you more resources. Most functions will have specific initiatives to fundamentally change how they work. So that's clear. That is already happening. Today it is in the form of pilots. Tomorrow it will be in full-fledged systems. Each function will put out in these especially big companies separately to revamp, reshape maybe how they do things with AI and automation. Again, this is an important, amazing chart around AI adoption and how it's rising. And you can see this is the USA firms using AI. Again, this is by March 2025. Again, this is the source of it. And you can look at it by industry. And if we look at the legend here, this is just a timeline. And it includes also the next 6 months. And you can see number one is information technology, and then there's professional scientific, then education after that. So that's interesting. Finance, real estate, healthcare. These are like top industries. This is maybe an average for all industries. You can see here in the middle, and that adoption is happening fast. And that means, and by the way, this is a percentage here, that means in the next 6 months, all industries will be at 10% adoption compared to information, for example, which will be at 25%. So already we have sectors at 25% AI adoption. That's super interesting. And if you think this is a little, I think this is for only 2 years being in this AI-driven technology world to hit 25% for one industry. That's something probably never happened before. And all of this chart, if we look at it in 2 years, it will be at a totally different scale. The scale will not be, probably 30% will be the starting point here. Remember, all executives in your business that you work for, they are looking at something like that. This report will go to all of the C-suite members of your corporate. And here it just shows the efficiency of workers, or let's say employees, with or without AI. At least a minimum of 14% difference between an employee who didn't use AI and an employee who used AI. 14% improvement. And this is looking specifically at hourly chat per customer support agent. So imagine, this is like one segment they're looking at. Now, I'm pretty sure if I was an executive in such a corporate, the next question will be, can I see it across my different functions? Can I see it across sales? Can I see it across supply chain and other areas? So I think this is modest. I would like to understand more why only for 14%. Because honestly, in today's world, probably you can run not only text-based agents or customer service agents, you can actually have voice-based AI customer support agents that for many industries are very efficient, like real estate, for example. They can explain the listings. They can get you an appointment for to view an apartment, for example. They can do a lot, 100% AI. So efficiency would be 100%. Just saying this out loud. This is what people are looking at. So you should be always aware of what people in decision-making positions are looking at. Again, one more interesting chart in the job market. The blue line just shows the trend. And again, you see here it starts in 2018 and up till today. This is the trend of the change in the United States of America. So this is US based, but just tells you, okay, where things are going in other countries. So even if you're not in the US, probably this will be a fact in the future for you. For AI, compared to non-AI IT job postings. So from IT job posting, AI and non-AI related. This is AI, and you can see here from 2023, the trend is going up. So let me put it here. So this is AI related jobs and this is non-AI IT jobs. If I was in AI looking at this chart, my whole thing is to learn AI so I can jump on this boat or this bus or whatever you want to call it. So clearly opportunities are decreasing in IT, they're increasing in AI. That's just a fact. This is what data is telling us. So this is it for the best parts of, in my opinion, the best AI report I have ever put my hands on since I started this whole thing and this whole channel. Probably whatever I covered in this episode is enough for most people. I still encourage you to go look into the report, read through it yourself, or use AI with it. Basically, this is ironic, but use AI to actually walk you through the important parts of it. Nothing still beats reading such a report on your own. But what to do with it? Well, do not panic. I always say that when I discuss these type of AI topics, it tells you a lot. It could be overwhelming. It could be even scary, and I understand that. But if you're an individual, clearly, you need to start on the journey of learning AI. Again, learning AI doesn't mean that you become a technical person. Learning AI means that you are a little bit savvy in using the AI tools. Join my community. I want to have conversations around that ongoing, non-stop. We all learn from each other. I think sometimes I'm good at AI. I find out that using a simple feature and a simple tool that I never thought about beats many things I do in a more complex way, if that makes any sense. I want to have conversation with people. It is growing fast. No one person can grasp everything happening in the world of AI. So a community developing that know-how and that skill set collectively, for me, I am betting my personal money, putting a community for free on school, that this is the way to go in the future. So start learning. Join a community like mine. If not mine, join something else. Go on YouTube. From time to time, watch some videos. Use AI every day. Use it for the simple things and things that are related to work. Learn about it. Take your pace. Yes, this is going fast, but it's not too late to start, and you can do it on your own pace. People have lives, responsibilities. So put as much time as you can per week to learn AI. This is my one recommendation for most people. If you're a business owner or you're an executive in a corporate, start thinking AI. Start thinking what is one feature you would pilot in your business that could, at least today, remove a non-value adding part of the process, maybe significant to your business with a high cost linked to it, that you can replace it with AI that will get you really big yield when it comes to efficiency and even saving cost or expenses. And maybe it will increase your profitability. So look for one area where it makes real sense, business-wise, technology-wise, and implementation-wise, where you can test this. And start small and scale. Explore with it. Think about it. Just your ability to articulate, regardless if you adopt or don't adopt, that you understand the technology out there, how it could affect positively or negatively maybe your area, is necessary for you in your own organization, regardless as an owner or employee. On both cases, I believe you have to be able to articulate this clearly to others, and that could differentiate you in the future from an AI employee or a non-AI employee. And I think prospects are really brighter if you are an AI savvy employee, and I think charts are giving us a hint about that. I hope you still hung around. As usual, some of my videos are long, but I want to give as much value as I can. I hope you got value out of it. I hope you enjoyed it. You learned something new. If you did, do not forget to hit that subscribe button. Give me a like, share the video with someone else who you think will benefit out of this. And with this, thank you for giving me your time, and goodbye.
Subscribe to Daddy's channel. Give me the mic.